course. Right, Maui, what is your good point?
Mine is the fact that FlyQuest get an upgrade and JKS gets on a roster. The reason I take this angle, first and foremost, is that as cool as we all kind of felt Liaz was, he was quite bad in the server for quite some time. I feel like people gave him way too much slack for a while because we all know that he was on the Renegades team, and at this point he's kind of become Oceania kind of royalty. So people were sort of giving him a pass for what he was doing on the FlyQuest team, but in reality, like his performances stunk. Like he was really to any time in the last year or so that he was facing top opposition, you could almost depend on him to just put up like 5 kills in a game, like numbers that are just so abysmal that it almost gave his team no opportunity to win. And it's not like JKS was absolutely killing it on Liquid right before he got benched, but for FlyQuest, I feel like this is just another step in the right direction for them. And FlyQuest as a whole, I don't think we got that many blockbuster moves of this offseason, but if I see one on paper upgrade, this is probably one of the clearest for me. So for them to snag this, it shows that FlyQuest is actually willing to spend money as they had to get JKS out of Liquid, and that they also, I mean, they've taken some kind of interesting risks lately. The fact that they actually went to benching Dexter and then putting Ints as the in-game leader because it would be a firepower upgrade, getting Nedic in Dexter's stead, and then also just kind of going for it. And actually, it keeps the identity of the team by keeping it Australian. They're not just upgrading by getting new European players. But for me now, this just kind of puts Vexite on the hot seat. I feel like of anybody on this roster, like he's had, like I mean, I'll see some games where he's playing European teams and you can see like, okay, this is some potential here and there. He's just only 20 years old, but he's kind of been playing at this tier 1 level for, I think he's played something like 5 majors or something at this point because he was playing with the Greyhound Corps for a while. But all they were really known for is just, are they fighting for dead last place? Like, is it them or is it some other team from that region? But yeah, all in all, I think that in an offseason that's been mild and underwhelming, this is to me one of the ones where it's like, okay, cool, I'll actually be a little bit more invested and interested watching FlyQuest in the upcoming season.
Yeah, I like this FlyQuest team just from an organizational standpoint. I do like how they've gone about things. They're, as you said, very willing to spend money, and getting Regali was a risk, and it's clearly paid off. He's like the backbone of this team at this point. Gels very well with the Australian core, and that's a cool guy to keep on your roster's books. I do think that this team has a bit of a ceiling when I think about the in-game leading. I think when it comes to CS2 at the very highest level, I don't think you need an ultra elite caller anymore. I think firepower upgrades are the way to go when you think about roster moves, but I do think that a team that is borderline top 30, they need just a bit more solid of an IGL base, and I don't think Inns has ever done it for me. To me, I think that even with Dexter and the issues that he had internationally, I still felt that level was good enough that I would like to try and build around it. It's a weird situation to be in because I also think that he was lacking from a firepower perspective, so it's a bit of a paradox or in that sense of like, which way do you really want to go? I'm glad that they've stuck to an actual decision and gone all the way in. Because yes, from an objective perspective, the JKS move is an upgrade, but I'm still very worried from that perspective of, do they have enough of a strategy base between Urcast and Inns to kind of survive in the top 20, top 10 space? I'm not exactly sure. Like, I still view this team as a roster that would be able to get the odd upset, at an EPL when they're in the lower bracket and they knock out, like, I don't know, like a Liquid or something because they're having an off tournament. But to me, I'm still not convinced by this team beyond really JKS and Regali to perform and cause a massive shakeup for Australia. But maybe that's just me.
I actually think this move is a banger for everyone except JKS, basically, because obviously, if in a perfect world, you only really do this when no one else will take you. So sadly, I think that she's already at the position she's arrived at. But I will throw out the tiny olive branch that goes. To be fair, FlyQuest is a much bigger organisation than any of the past organisations this core of players with in Australia. So it is also true they probably have half decent money compared to maybe like a slightly better squad that plays for a worse org in Europe or something. And if you look at his career the last few years, he's tried to hold out for the good gigs and the salaries, etc. So first of all, aside from for JKS, who I still think could play on like a better team, and I do think sadly did get kicked because NAF missed a team liquid at the time they wanted to keep the fucking RMR spot. I think that's just reality. I think between the two of them, it was actually hard to tell who's playing worse. But I actually think for the team itself, this is almost the best possible move you could ever get. Not only is it literally a legend of your scene, but he actually, the key thing, I was talking to Chad about this in my reflections with him, I always could tell the people who either they were reacting like Richard was to people overrating JKS, or they just never watched his game. Is I never ever had this guy as like a star in the sense of like the way people like Nico are stars and have like crazy impact on every round. Like the amazing thing about JKS is he played almost his entire career doing the exact same style of CT anchoring. It was actually like a specialist skill of his. By the way, in the early days when it was just the Australian Renegades, they had him in that role. When he was then in fucking G2, he was fucking amazing at that role. When he was then later on in Team Liquid, he was all right at that role. Like this guy actually is one of those rare like specialists in the game. And by the way, this, if you think about one of his most famous spots ever, where he's like the fucking A anchor on Mirage, that isn't fucking easy sledding, boys. That's one of the harder positions to play at tier 1. So I've always thought this guy actually, it's why in my opinion the one time he failed in his career was when he joined Complexity and other people just took all the fucking anchor and lurker roles off him, like that he let himself get wrecked. So as long as they actually set him up like they apparently did in all the teams he succeeded in to do this role, I imagine he'll be good at it. And considering he's joining fucking FlyQuest, he's actually overqualified if anything. So here's why I think they'll be good. Because I actually think he's going to like raise the floor of the team. You're going to have times you can just rotate off the site. He's a fucking veteran. He can win clutches. That means now someone like Regali can actually win you the game. Because I always thought the problem with FlyQuest, if you watch the last few majors or any of the tier 1 tournaments they go to, is they're one of the biggest fucking victims of the fact we have best of 3 all the time now. They have a really hard time winning a best of 3 against anyone, this team. By the way, they're in a million of them. There's so many times they'll have like a close map or overtime or they win a map, but they just can't get over the line. So to me, that's not like you haven't got good players. That means you probably don't have any consistency in like performance though. And if you want consistency in performance, JKS is right with the Doctor Ordered boys. So I think this is a great move for FlyQuest. I also think now, here's the difference. Now you're probably one piece away from actually doing something in a real tournament. Like you bring in like one good European rifler now, you could already go to a PGL and be in the playoffs and mix it up with some teams and win a map off someone like the Mongols or something. So I think for FlyQuest, it's almost the best scenario. And then lastly, if you are JKS, I'll tell you the one thing that's kind of cool here. Even though I've heard basically he can just live in like Europe whenever he wants to, he's got some sort of setup there. In theory, this also means now you can actually still be a pro and just go live in Australia if you want. Because as I pointed out again in my interview with Chad, and I always go out my way to anytime it's an interview with an Australian player, Australian players make all those NA pros look like absolute dickheads when they cry like, and I have to stay in Europe for like 3 months. I tried just living for like 7 years outside of Australia, you fucking idiot, and just having every day of your life be you not talking to an Australian friend or family member or girlfriend and then just do it all for the video game, mate. That's literally the life all of those Renegades core players have, and I have crazy respect for those guys. That they think how long JKS has done it now, boys. Like, when ironically, like I say, he's actually like lived in Europe for like the better part of a decade. It's crazy. Or America, depending on where the team was based. So I cool to see him continue his career. Anytime someone still has something left in the tank, I want to see him play still. So I think it's pretty much good across the board. Like I said, the only person it might not be is JKS, but as I kind of explained there, I also don't think he's just a plug and play player. He's the sort of player you have to know the role you're bringing him in for and want him for that role. So I also think he probably just wouldn't get a spot into the top teams now. And I imagine, no fault of his, but I imagine he wants to get paid. I don't think he wants to just go on fucking minimum wage. So I think it was just probably the right time for this move all around. And surely if you're an Australian fan, by the way, it's just brought the hype now. Now it's about the best scenario you could hope for. See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.